What do you wish men knew about good sex?
Oh, goodness. I wish men knew that first, putting in a prosthesis is not going to guarantee them sex because they have to think about their partner.
But she's talking about a penile implant. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Also, that a very firm erection is going to enter, if you're having sex with a female partner, a very firm erection is going to be easier to enter her vagina than a not so firm erection. So for men who feel like, their erection's pretty good and so they don't want to go to the doctor yet, there's nothing wrong with taking an oral medication. There's lots of them out there in the market now. They're generic. They're very inexpensive because a harder penis is going to be more satisfying for your partner.
And less likely for you to injure yourself.
Yes, absolutely. You're more, the less hard it is, the more likely that you're going to come down on the woman incorrectly, or she's going to come down on you, and you're going to have an injury and have Peyronie's disease. And of course, if you're having penile sex, you need a very firm erection as well. So I think those are things that are important. I think for a man to know that same messages before using a lubricant, using a vibrator does not mean you are less than. It means that you want to have some more fun during sex. And that's focused on erectile. But there are other issues. There are a lot of weird things that men have. And most physicians don't know how to deal with it. Sleep-related prolonged erections.
Yeah.
Hard flaccid syndrome. Post-orgasmic illness syndrome, which happen to men and women, but more frequently in men. These are things that sound crazy, but are real.
Yeah.
And we're slowly learning more and more about these things to get help. But for men, please don't joke.
Yeah.
Please don't go on the internet and see all this cool stuff to make your penis bigger and longer. And please don't put filler in your penis. All of these things that make you bigger, 99% of them are going to harm you. Don't look at your penis and say, I'm not big enough, I'm not good enough. If your partners are satisfied, then you should be satisfied. Men feel like they have to have the biggest dick on the street. You're not standing in the locker room comparing yourself to everybody else. It's not relevant. All that's relevant is that you're satisfying your partner and that she or he, whatever your partner is happy with your penis. Don't start playing with it. And the same thing for women. Labiaplasty, if you have labia that extrude past your bathing suit, you need to deal with. Don't start having facelifts of your penises and your vagina. Well, not vagina, it's really the labia. Sure. Because you're harming yourself. And then you're going to have sexual dysfunction and you're going to come to people like Dr. Malik and Dr. Goldstein and say, hey, can you help me? And go,
Surgeries are, you can't undo surgery, and you only have one penis and one vulva. And so once you have caused permanent damage, it's very difficult. Now, I will say hyaluronic fillers dissolve, so that's not as scary as the other sort of permanent fillers. But generally speaking, I think there's a lot of, and part of it is because of society really puts a premium on big dick energy, right? But the reality is that has nothing to do with pleasure for the large majority of people. Of course, there are women who really prefer a large phallus. Maybe that's not the right person for you, right? But that's a very small subset of women. The large majority of people are very happy with an average size penis.
And people will be surprised at the average size penis, which does vary by race. But the fact is that unless you have a micro phallus, keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's perfectly fine. And doing those things is not going to lead to more pleasure necessarily.
But it could lead to harm.
Absolutely. This episode of the Rena Malik MD podcast is brought to you by Alloy Health. I talk about menopause and perimenopause all the time on this podcast because the symptoms are real, they're disruptive, and for way too long, women have been told to just push through. The sleep disruptions, hot flashes, brain fog, changes in sexual desire, they're treatable. And as a physician who specializes in this space, it genuinely frustrates me that almost half of women go 3 or more years before getting help. We need women to stop suffering in silence. And Alloy is helping women get the care they are struggling to find. Alloy is a digital health platform that connects you with menopause specialized doctors to create a personalized, science-backed treatment plan for your specific symptoms. It's all done online from the convenience of your home. Your prescription ships directly to your door with automatic refills, and you get unlimited messaging with your doctor. Join the 95% of women who tried Alloy and saw relief in the first 2 weeks. Head to myalloy.com and use code RENA. Tell them about your symptoms, get a fully customized treatment plan, unlimited messaging with your doctor, and $20 off your first order. That's myalloy.com, code RENA. What do you think would make doing research in sexual medicine easier or more accessible?
Money.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that the NIH, the government, has put minimal research into women's health. They did have a whole segment of women's health, but within that, nothing for women's sexual health, really. My husband had 25 years of NIH funding for erectile dysfunction, and the moment he switched to female, he lost all his funding. Now, that was a long time ago. Now all the funding is gone. But because Viagra had a home run and all the other companies, following it, they all did well. When Addie came out, it wasn't a financial home run. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But because of that, other companies were leery. And after Addie, we had Vyleesi, and again, not a home run. And so companies are scared. Dairy has product that they're working on, and God bless them that they're continuing to work on that. But other than in Europe right now, there are pieces that you hear grumbling. I mean, I'm involved in some things that I can't really talk about, but because there aren't pots of money saying, "Hey, I want to invest," like they did after the PD5s. It's a problem.
Yeah.
So we rely, if we do research in our office, it's either going after a company to get a grant, investigator-initiated grant, or the money coming out of our office pockets, we'll do it ourselves. So we do a lot of chart reviews because that gives us a lot of information and it costs us very little money. But until there are companies willing to invest, this research, people don't understand, it's millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's incomprehensible what it takes. And, only one drug out of 100 will ever get that far. And then it's whether the FDA will even approve it.
Yeah, I definitely think, this is always a challenge. I think people don't really realize how much money goes into research, specifically for pharmacologic interventions and device interventions. There's millions and millions of dollars that go into it. And people are to prove that they're safe and efficacious. And people are very leery still, despite that.
Yes.
But they will happily take XYZ supplement
that they buy at the gas station.
Yeah. Absolutely. With which often get recalled because they have undeclared substances in them. So I always find that really fascinating about human
behavior, really.
Yeah, behavior.
I say people spend more time shopping for a used car than they do shopping for a doctor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's nowhere for them to look, right? Like there's no we have Google reviews and all that sort of stuff, but for most doctors, there's not a lot of human data on their experience with them.
And the reality is that Google reviews will often have a lot of negative reviews because those are the few people who are upset that they didn't have a good result.
Yeah.
And so they will write over and over and over again under different names.
Yeah. And doctors are not good at soliciting positive reviews.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So you mentioned jelqing for men as a big no-no. What do you tell women? What are things that they're doing besides taking birth control, which we talked about, that could be harming their sex lives?
To me, plastic surgery is something you do because you have to. I recently had basal cell carcinoma on my nose and my cheek. That was removed, and then I had plastic surgery to repair it. And, everyone has their own decisions to make. I would love to have the guts to have a facelift, but there's no way that I would do that. So essentially, you're saying you're doing a facelift on your vulva. That to me, it carries its risks.
Yeah.
And people need to be aware of that. There are nerves down there. When you cut those nerves, the nerves are not going to grow back. It's just foolish unless you're working with somebody who's really, really skilled.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We're in Southern California ourselves, and Dr. Gary Alter is the only double-boarded plastic surgeon and urologist.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a patient that needs plastic surgery in the vulva, we will send them to Dr. Alter.
Yeah.
Put a plug in for a colleague. But the fact is that there are people out there saying, I can make you beautiful. I can do this. I can do that. do your research and find out, is that really true? Whether it's a drug you're taking or, a surgery, any kind of intervention, you need to do your research before you move forward with it.
Yeah.
I think when we're talking about menopause management and doing hormones, any doctor prescribing hormones has that research at his or her fingertips to show you.
Yeah.
But some of these other interventions, but I think women don't do as much harm to themselves as men in the sexual health arena. I mean, that's just the reality because we don't have the same kind of organ that can be damaged so easily.
Right. I do think douching and vaginal steaming, those sorts of things, they can disrupt the microbiome, and that could predispose women to more yeast infections, more bacterial vaginosis, which can then lead to sexual dysfunction. It's not direct. It's not directly causing it, but that can lead to problems.
And in my generation, people talked about douching all the time, and I never understood why, what purpose it served. I'm going to wash my socks so my feet don't smell, but my vagina is smelling just the way it should.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's this, again, it's a society thing, right? That you don't smell good, so let me give you all these products to make you smell like a key lime pie. And come on, nobody wants to.
You're not supposed to smell like a key lime pie.
Nobody wants that. I don't know what guy wants key lime pie. Maybe there are. I don't. If that's what you're into, but just don't put sweet things down there. That's not safe.
Yeah, not internally. I mean, you can play and use, like I said before, the chocolate syrup or chocolate sauce, maple syrup, whatever
on the skin, but not
on the skin, but nothing inside, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you have patients that come in, because you must see this all the time, who haven't had sex for years, right? And then you fixed them, but they're now getting back into having sex. What sort of advice do you have for those kind of people?
Well, there are a lot of things that are going on. If they're in a relationship, they may need some couples therapy because he may be afraid to touch her. He also may be experiencing erectile dysfunction. So those are things you need to address. But for her, she needs to understand that her, at the beginning, it'll take a while for the hormones to come into play to be able to make the area healthy. If it's post-surgery, for instance, and that's why she hasn't had sex for a long time, she may need physical therapy to relax the muscles. The pelvic floor gets very tight. And so even though you can treat the area that's causing the pain, the secondary result of the pain is a high-tone pelvic floor, so you may need physical therapy. You may need to use dilators, and the physical therapist or the sex therapist can help you with that. I think one of the misnomers with dilators is people think, I'm just going to stick it in and I'm going to go to the next size. And no, there are very specific ways of using dilators. And if your doctor says, here, buy dilators, and doesn't give you instructions, then don't do it. You need someone who's going to help you through that. But whether you're young or old, if you haven't had sex in a long time, those are really, I think, the biggest issues, the psychological relationship issues and the biologic, getting your body ready.
Yeah. What about people who are single? Like, let's say, for example, a man who had erectile dysfunction and now he's feeling more confident, but he's still a bit nervous about having an erection that's going to last.
Whatever is going on, we often will tell people who have performance anxiety not to be afraid to use an oral pill for the first few times, because that will give them the confidence if there's nothing biologically wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. There are young people who look perfectly healthy, are told by their general urologist it's psychologic. Yeah. Because they don't have the time or the sophisticated testing, and they come to us because they're desperate, and our testing, or because of what we can do, they do often have biologic problems. But there are plenty of people who just have performance anxiety. So don't be afraid, take a Viagra, take a Cialis, whatever works for you, to give you the confidence that you need. And then after you've had sex a few times, you may try it without it and see if that works. There's nothing wrong with taking medicine if it's prescribed by somebody who's knows what they're doing. I know that in a lot of countries, those medications are now over the counter because they're really quite safe. I mean, let's be honest.
I didn't know that. They're over the counter in
Mexico, and I think they are in the UK. I know they were fighting to get it in the UK, and I'm not sure if they were successful or not. But a lot of our patients will just go across the border to Tijuana and buy it. You have to go to the pharmacy. It's behind the counter, but it's over the counter, and that you don't need a prescription.
Yeah, I think I think that there's some medications where that would probably open up access for a lot of people. Now that you've spent decades in this space, what are you most excited about for the future of sexual health?
I think I'm most excited about the opportunity for the world to get to know more about sexual medicine. I think removing the box warning from hormones gave permission for people to talk about it. My mother always told a story that when Viagra came out, my husband was so lucky that this is when he's working as a urologist, because when she grew up, nobody had ED. I said, that's not true. Everyone had ED, but there was no treatment for it, so nobody went to the doctor. I would like to see a world where women understand there are treatments for them, and so they can go to their doctor and demand the treatments. I think while we live in a society where we don't talk about our sexual health, that women don't talk about their sexual health, we don't know that there are treatments out there, that there are doctors dedicating their life to treating women with sexual health. And so to me, educating women that it's okay to have a problem, it's okay to see treatment, because there are treatments out there. Some are on label, some are off label. We treat men with things that are off label too. That just means that it's a drug that's prescribed, it's approved by the FDA for something else, and we're using it for this purpose. That's what we do with testosterone. We use a man's kind of testosterone, so we know it's pure, it's FDA approved, but we use it in a dose for a woman. I would like a world where women can feel comfortable talking about sexual health and know that there's care for them.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I work at San Diego Sexual Medicine, so they can go to www.sdsm.info. You can also write to me. I'm not embarrassed to give out my email. Feel free to write to me, SueWGoldstein@gmail.com. And don't forget the W, otherwise it goes to a lovely nurse in St. Louis. You can also find out more about what we do from ISWISH, International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. In about 3 days, I will no longer be immediate past president. My husband and I will be the only presidents probably in history to have husband and wife both having been presidents of the same society.
That's crazy.
But don't be afraid to use online resources. There is ISWISH has a patient website called Keeks. I'm sorry, Keeks is who designed it, called Prosayla, PROSAYLA.com. There is information out there. And just remember, half of what's on the internet is garbage, but the other half is good stuff.
Yeah.
So seek and ye shall find.
Guys, if you liked that conversation, I need you to do one solid favor for me. Hit that subscribe button, follow button on the podcast platform you're listening on, because it does a huge favor for us in helping more people find our content. It takes just a couple seconds and it's completely free. And as always, we're going to take care of yourself because you are worth it.